Hello, everyone, and welcome to Story Forge, where we will be discussing character creation for tabletop role playing games, both new and old. I'm your host, Andy, and today we're going to be discussing Mutants and Masterminds, third edition. Green Ronin is the publisher for this particular product, and it deals with superheroes and superpowered individuals from a setting perspective. Today, actually, we are going to be discussing and creating the character that I am going to be playing in the Untold Stories Project's upcoming stream from the Titan City universe. I have our esteemed DM, Alex Thomas, with me today to kind of give you guys an overview of what Titan City is, what the setting for the scenario is that we're going to be uh, bringing to you on the stream. And once we're done with that, we're going to go ahead and jump in, and I'll show you exactly who it is I'll be playing and how it was that I built them. So, Alex, if you want to take it from there.
Yeah, sure. My name is Alexander Thomas. I am the author of the Titan City Chronicles, which is a series of novels that take place in the Titan City universe. The first novel of which is The Magician's Sin, which came out last year, and I'm working on the sequel right now to that. I'm also a freelance game designer for Green Ronin, and I work on the Mutants and Masterminds project line, so it seemed like the perfect marriage for this particular streaming show. I'm really excited to have additional storytellers running around playing in my universe, and I can't wait to see what Andy comes up with.
Cool. So, give them a let's do a little bit of a scenario. What exactly are you getting us into inside Titan City? What are we doing?
Yeah, so this first serial is called The Lost and Forgotten, and it's set in Titan City in 1922, which is a little bit earlier than The Magician's Sin historical period-wise. It's going to be a high investigation, role-playing Mutants and Masterminds scenario that's going to be very fantasy noir with an emphasis on monsters. Basically, the world's greatest city is roaring into an age of unparalleled growth and prosperity. The Great War is over, and America is drunkenly dancing through the 1920s. People have had 15 years to adjust to the existence of magic and monsters, and things seem like they're only going to get better from here. Unfortunately, for the monsters of Titan City, someone is abducting members of their community. The common people don't have the resources or the desire to investigate this crime, so it falls to a collection of people brought together by Mr. Powers to look into who's taking these monsters and for what nefarious purpose that could be. It's going to be very film noir mixed with monsters and magic, which that's my favorite style of storytelling.
Perfect. All right. So we've already had our session zero. If you don't know what a session zero is, session zeros are usually a scenario where you get together with your GM and the other players that are going to be joining you on any campaign, and you hash out exactly what the scenario you're going to be playing through is and what the ideas for your characters are. Mostly you do this so that you're not stepping on anybody else's toes by playing the exact same character with maybe the exact same name and the exact same weapon. Uh,
That's
and
never happened before.
no,
I
never.
don't know anyone who's played two Gaiuses in a campaign before.
No, it doesn't happen. I just name them A and B, right? So we've had our session zero, gone through all of that. Everyone that's going to be joining on the stream has decided on their characters. My character is Minerva Vantner. She is, or rather was, a socialite in Titan City who happened to be big in the suffragette movement. So you can kind of imagine that throws a little bit of a wrench into things in her normal day-to-day life. She's trying to challenge the status quo, and some bad things happen to her. We'll let you guys find out actually what happens when we get to the stream itself. But she happens to end up in the body of a golem. It's been a couple of years now since she landed in that form, so she has really kind of ingratiated herself into the monster community from being a normal human beforehand. So with that kind of character concept in mind of a golem that used to be a socialite suffragette, that's my starting point for this character. You guys can see right up here, I have Hero Lab up and running. Hero Lab, Alex and I use for the math behind Mutants and Masterminds. While the system is really good at letting you choose powers and it's relatively simple with it, depending on how complex you can get, the math can get a little tweaky. That's why it's nice to have this system in place that can kind of help us work through it. So what I'm looking at right here is I'm looking at my abilities. So you start off in Mutants and Masterminds, you've got 8 different abilities: strength, stamina, agility, dexterity, fighting, intelligence, awareness, and presence. Those will impact your skills, impact your defenses, impact your DCs, the difficulty class of your attacks for your enemies to resist, and they're basically your starting point. Because I'm making a standard human in the body of a golem, I'm going to leave these alone for right now. We're going to go ahead and jump over to the advantages tab, or I'm sorry, the powers tab. We're going to jump to the powers tab, and we're going to actually start building the golem body. That's going to be the basis for everything. That's where all of the supernatural abilities kind of come from. So Alex, as I'm going through, if you want to discuss any of these things that pop up that I'm choosing to let people know why it is this is a good choice or what is an alternate choice, that would also be great. So what you can see here within Hero Lab, we've got all of the different powers that exist within the Mutants and Masterminds universe, within the system itself.
And if I can just say, one of the best parts about Mutants and Masterminds' power system is that it's not specifically, it's not breaking down and telling you exactly this is what a magnetism hero can do. This isn't what a super strong character can do. You have a number of effects, and that you can describe those effects anyway, but you can build basically any character because you're working with what does the power do, and then you call it or describe it however you want to, which I think it adds a certain element of cinematic storytelling, which I really appreciate.
Yeah, you're not just limited to I'm going to choose this and that's like Alex suggested, magnetism. I'm not going to choose magnetism control and that is the extent of my powers. You can make it the extent of your powers, but you could also add little bits of flair to it as well.
Yeah. So Andy, you're building a very power-heavy character. How do you decide? How do you ratio your power points? Just to specify, they are going to be power level 8 characters with a few extra power points. They're going to be 135 power points instead of 120.
Yeah, and power points in this game are basically how you can allot your abilities, so that I need to know that I'm going to have so much that I can dedicate to my powers, dedicate to my abilities, dedicate to my defenses, dedicate to my skills, dedicate to advantages, which are kind of like feats if you're familiar with Pathfinder or D&D. So I'm building a power heavy character because it is a monster to some degree. It's at least a supernatural creature. So I'm going to be going power heavy. Because it's a golem, it's going to have, I'm thinking of increased fighting, increased toughness, increased strength, because it's a supernatural creature of that regards. So I think I can spend more of my points up front on the powers and then probably do skills as a secondary thing, leave some points left over for my advantages and for topping off any of my defenses that I can't buff through powers. So that's what I was kind of thinking.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Right.
And that's another thing I really like about Mutants and Masterminds is you can build a power-heavy character, somebody like a Superman or somebody like Thor, or you can do a very skill and advantage-oriented character. And since they're built with the same amount of power points and they're constricted by the same power level limits, you can wind up with a team that has a wide variety of abilities and talents, but without anyone feeling overshadowed, in my opinion.
Yeah, you can actually build the entire Bat family and make them feel completely different. Or you can build the Justice League and make them all feel completely different, but all have a place to play.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, seeing as how I'm going to be building a power heavy character, what I need to do is I need to figure out exactly how that's going to manifest. And since we talked about this being a golem and having increased strength and toughness and stuff of that nature, what I think I'm going to do is all of these powers come from the fact that it is a golem. It's a creature that was brought to life by magic, for lack of a better word to describe it. So instead of taking a bunch of different powers and just kind of shoving them together, what I actually am going to do is I am going to choose this multiple effects thing. So basically, what this allows me to do is this allows me to say I have one container for these powers because this is where they come from, and everything underneath that, yes, they all add up to the total number of power points spent for that one power, and everything in that container is usable. If I were to do it in, say, an array, which is up there at the very top of the screen, an array would only let me use one of those powers at a time versus having all of them active at once. I don't actually see that as a good choice for this character because it needs all of its abilities active at once. She needs all of her abilities active at once. So we're going to go ahead and choose multiple effects. And that's going to basically let me name the power right off the bat there and add powers and advantages and also add alternative effects, which Alex, you go ahead and explain alternative effects.
Yeah, so an alternative effect is it's basically a way to build an array inside your multiple effect. It lets you take one of your powers, say you have super strength, and you can spend one power point to add an alternate effect to your super strength, where like you can clap and make a thunder strike, or you can pick something heavy up and chuck it at somebody as an attack. Just ways to that you've already spent the points for super strength, and you want to do other things with your strength other than just pick things up and punch people.
Yeah, perfect. That's a great way to explain those. So I got to name this container something. You could leave it blank, but then it's not quite the same as actually, fully fleshing the character out. So I'm going to go ahead and name this, and I am naming this Clay of Man because it's a golem that was made out of a bunch of clay and then animated by the magic. So that's the container name itself, and now I get to add powers to it. So I click on the Add Powers, and I go right back to that power screen that we showed at the very beginning of this. Um, so we talked about having increased abilities, enhanced abilities. So there is actually one of those things right here. Enhanced ability, 2 points per rank, increases an existing trait. So going back to the abilities tab, your strength, your dexterity, your stamina, that kind of stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and choose this one. Go ahead and select it. Pops up a box. And I need to choose what it is that I'm going to increase. And let's talk stamina. So we'll start there. I need to actually name what this is going to be. It is going to be Rune of Endurance because a golem is forged and then runes are inserted to kind of give it its purpose and its strength. So we've got stamina, we've got a name. Up here, I only have one rank in it so far. So what that's going to do is it's going to be 1 point of stamina. 1 point of stamina is good, but it really isn't all that great for a created creature such as the golem that Minerva's spirit is inhabiting. So we're going to go ahead and increase that. I say we'll increase it to 5. So this is costing us 10 power points total so far. Now, if we remember, it said this is a temporary enhancement. We don't want this to be temporary. We want this to be permanent because it's a part of the character itself. So we're going to add this new extras or flaws. Extras or flaws are ways to make your character power different than anybody else. You can see there's a whole list of things on here. It's like if I wanted to, like Superman's got a breath ability, that would be like area cone attack rather than just a single person target attack if it was just a blast or something like that. So one of the things that I'm looking for in here is because I said it's permanent, it's part of the character, it's always going to be active. So there is a permanent flaw. There it is, right there. So permanent becomes, it cannot be turned on, off, it's always on. So Minerva walking around in this golem body is always tougher than she would be at any other point in time. We're going to go ahead and add that to my list.
And one thing you can do to add to the permanent flaw, you can also take the innate extra, which means that it can't be nullified because it is an intrinsic part of her existence. It's not something that it's not like going ghost for Danny Phantom. This is just who she is. It's 100% always on.
Yep.
Which can be awesome, and it can be a hindrance. It just depends. That's why they have the extra bonus and the permanent flaw added together. I think it's a really cool system.
Yep. So we'll go ahead and add innate because it is part of the character, and it's permanent because it's always on.
Especially if you're permanently like 16 feet tall.
Yeah, that's a horrible way to go. All right, so there we've added our Rune of Endurance. We've increased our stamina, which gives us increased toughness. It gives us increased survivability. So with that in mind, I'm going to add a couple more runes to this character off screen here for a little bit. I'm going to add a rune of fighting. I'm going to add a rune of strength, and I'm going to add a rune of protection because all of those seem like important pieces of this character, of Minerva's golem form. We're going to go ahead and we'll jump back to that later. We're going to talk about the advantages that I see Minerva having. Now, advantages are, like I said, they're like feats in D&D. You get to choose as many of them as you want here. You're not limited to just one per level. And you can increase the ability of them too. Some of them, like improved initiative, you can increase by different ranks. They cost all 1 power point apiece, and you get different bonuses for the different levels for them. So for Minerva, kind of looking at this from a standpoint of like, she was a socialite, she was part of the suffragette movement, she knows people within the city, she's really good at talking to people, she's really good at getting people to help her. So that leads me to choose this connected feat. So at any point in time, I can make a persuasion check. Alex can ask me what it is I'm actually looking for help with, and depending on the score of my persuasion check, I get somebody to help me. So I think connected really works for this character.
And Minerva's also, she's in her new life as a golem, she's also made connections with the monster community, and she knows, I mean, she's been working at the hub of monster activity in Titan City, so she knows people, she knows how to get people to help her, and I think that's really going to come into play a lot for the campaign we're doing.
Yeah, we're talking about an investigative campaign. We want to be able to persuade people to help us in this investigation. We want to be able to, not quite shake down the mook outside the bar, but actually be able to say, hey, I'm your friend. You could be able to trust me with this.
And as a GM, you should be thinking, oh, this player has connected. So what does that tell you? What does that give you to add to the story? You know that they know a lot of people. You know that they're likely to reach out to a lot of people. So it's good to come up with some contacts, some connections that you can give to the player character, but you can also ask them to give you like an idea of, so who is one person you're connected to that you regularly go to for favors and advice. So it helps the players get involved in the world building, and it gives you a lot of plot points to pull on as a GM.
Yep. Yeah, because this is everything within this game, everything that you should be doing when you're building a character for any kind of game is building it collaboratively. You're not there to win the fight as you would be in like a video game. You're there to have a good time with a bunch of friends and socialize. So you all want to be working together, and the best way to work together is to make sure that everything is collaborative.
Yeah. Plus, as a GM, it makes your job a lot easier if you can outsource the work to the players, but don't tell them.
All right, so going down the list again, we see Die Hard down here. Die Hard means that I don't need to make a stamina check if I get hurt and am in the dying phase. As a golem, it really doesn't die, so that makes sense to me as well.
Also, it's thinking a little out of the box because I'm using the lethal rules from the Game Master's Guide for Mutants and Masterminds for the first time for this game. So we're getting rid of incapacitated, going straight to dying.
Yeah. So it's not quite a metagame thing because it works with the character. As long as you can say that it works for the character, you're not actually basically just putting in a roadblock to the GM, making it a little bit more challenging than it would normally be. All right, so we've got some other ones that we can talk to, but a couple of ones that really stand out to me for Minerva are leadership, which is down here. So leadership, you can spend a hero point. Hero points are really cool in Mutants and Masterminds. They allow you to do anything from reroll a check to see if you can get a better result, or to modify a scene. So, hey, we're in a theater, and darn it, I really need there to be a chandelier in this theater. But in this case, leadership is going to allow me to spend a hero point to remove conditions from my allies. So if they're actually dying, hey, hero point. They're not dying anymore. Really kind of helps. It helps everybody else out, and it makes sense from the character perspective of somebody that was working to better the cause of women's rights. She would be willing to work with people, kind of try to lead them towards things. So leadership makes a lot of sense. And another one that makes a lot of sense before we move on to looking at some of the skills is setup. So while the golem itself is a rather tanky character, Minerva herself isn't one to really maybe wade into combat haphazardly. Setup would allow me to choose a interaction skill, such as persuasion, and use it to give my allies a boost. So I can maybe distract somebody in combat and my allies get a benefit from that enemy being distracted. Now, I do have to take an advantage to allow myself to use one of those social skills in combat. That's why I'll have to do one more, which is Fascinate Persuasion. That'll at least allow me to go ahead and use Persuasion in combat. But setup would allow me to say, I'm going to use this and I'm going to give the bonus to my allies. So we're going to be playing with a 4-person group. So I'm going to go ahead and set that up so that she can help everybody in her group at one point in time. For advantages, that's all we're going to cover for now. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the skills. You can see here, we've got our skill list. You can add different skills under the expertise. You can set up close combat and range combat to be specific powers. But for Minerva, one of the things that's going to be really important for her, especially because I just was talking about it from the advantages perspective, is persuasion. We really want to increase her persuasion, and I'm going to put 12 points in this. I will go back and upgrade her. As you can see, the ability that this one is tied to is presence. I'm going to go ahead and I'll upgrade her presence when we get through with all of this to kind of show you guys, hey, this is how it works. But right now, with a presence of 0, I've got 12 ranks in persuasion. Another good thing to have is perception. Again, that's an awareness check. So we're looking to see, hey, what do we want to do with perception? So 7 ranks. Once I increase her awareness, that'll go up as well. You can kind of tell I've actually gone a little bit out of order. You think you would really start with your abilities before you would move on to your skills, your advantages, and your powers. You don't have to do that. You can, if you've got an idea of like how you want to build your character and how the character's powers are, you can always start there, see how many power points you've spent on a character, and then go back and see, what do I have left? How can I increase my abilities? One of the things that Mutants and Masterminds does is it does have a power level cap. So you really, your powers can't go, at least in this case, for power level 8, we can't go above power level 8 when doing a power, unless we're tweaking, if it's an attack, or we're tweaking to hit for the power effect. Alex, do you want to explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, so most powers are limited to twice your power level. And there's always a trade-off with stuff. So if you want to be particularly good at shrugging off damage, you're easier to hit. So your dodge and parry and your toughness are linked in that way. So if you're a power level 8 character, you can only have 16 total between those 2 sets of abilities. So if you wanted to have an 8 dodge and parry, you could have up to an 8 toughness. The same thing with your to hits and your damages. So basically, it's a way of ensuring that everybody who is that power level is basically playing in the same field. They might excel at certain things, and being a speedster and having a dodge and parry of 16 and a toughness of 0, you're almost never going to get hit. But when you get hit, you're going to get knocked out or killed.
Yeah.
Depending on the scenario.
Yes, depending on the scenario. All right, so while Alex was going through that, you can see I've been upgrading some of my other skills to kind of say, hey, these are the things that I think are important for my character to have. Close combat, because if anything, I'm going to be throwing punches. That's about the extent of my thing. Background-wise, expertise in psychiatry and law. Psychiatry, stuff that she's been doing the past couple of years. Law, something that she was doing while part of the suffragette movement. Insight, to basically be able to get that aha moment when looking at things. Investigation, to be able to read clues in a crime scene. And yeah, that's it for skills, other than going through and making sure that the abilities are set. So we're going to go back. We're going to look at the abilities.
You think Minerva was a big fan of the true crime movement in the 1920s? Do you think they had true crime podcasts back then?
No, I really don't. I think that
radio serials.
I think she would have wanted to avoid that as at all possible. All right, so we talked about I'm going to be increasing strength, fighting, and protection with runes. So that's why nothing here is going to increase. So I'm not going to increase strength or fighting, because those are going to be increased by my powers. I am going to increase my intelligence, my awareness, and my presence, because they make sense. Agility and dexterity in the body of a golem, going to be slow. Just going to leave those at 0. But intelligence, that's Minerva all to a T. She's going to be a brainy one of the bunch. So we're going to go ahead and up her intelligence to 4. We're going to bump her awareness, how cognizant of the world around her that she is. We're going to bump that to 3. And presence, how much of a force of nature she is in social situations. We're going to up that to 4. You can kind of see down here, some of my defenses have gone up due to that. So my will went up to with my awareness. My fortitude went up with the stamina from the rune. My toughness also comes from the stamina rune as well. So that is how these things are tied in. I'm going to upgrade my fortitude a little bit more and her will a little bit more. You can see I've exceeded the power cap here by saying that this is 9, which gives me that little up-down arrow. But as long as my fortitude and my will don't pass 16, we're all good. We're not worried about anything. So we'll show you guys a completed character sheet for Minerva here. All right, so here we go. We've got the final version of Minerva Vantner, the golem. Here on this character sheet, you can see we've added now our runes to strength, stamina, and fighting. We've increased intelligence, awareness, and presence. We've got an unarmed attack plus 10 for a DC of 21 with our offenses. We've got all our powers down here. I've got a comprehend so that I can understand anybody talking in any languages. Got immunities because, hey, I'm a golem. I'm not actually alive. I've got a morph ability so she can actually try to retain her own human form as well. Added a couple more advantages, speed of thought to increase her in her initiative so that it's based on her intellect rather than her agility, and ultimate effort to really be scary when she absolutely needs it, kind of like letting out the golem. One of the last things that you should do with any Mutants and Masterminds character is you should put in some complications. If you guys are interested in Minerva's complications, you should tune into the Untold Stories Project stream of the Titan City Chronicles. We're starting up on June 16th. Alex?
7 p.m.
7 p.m.
Eastern Standard Time.
Yes. So if you guys are interested in seeing this character or any of the other ones that were built for that game, tune in. We'll be happy to see you.